The Last of Us Season 1, Episode 2, I just watched it. I loved it just as much as I loved the first episode. But guys, before I jump into that, I want to talk about the hate for the show because it has gotten insane. People are mad because Joel and Ellie, they don't look like their video game counterparts. And I think that's just asinine. It's stupid. I think that we need to progress beyond that because Bella Ramsey, Pedro Pascal, they're bringing these characters to life in a way I didn't think was possible. It's like arcane levels of video game adaptation. In fact, this is probably a little bit better in terms of characters because in Arcane, they didn't really have actual characters to base off of. They were pretty open-ended. But here, they have to portray an exact person and they're nailing it because Ellie, Bella Ramsey, she's literally that character. She's embodying her so much. So for people who are saying Bella Ramsey isn't Ellie, what show are you watching? Did you play The Last of Us? Or did you just watch online clips and not really understand the context of their character dynamics and their relationships and how the world affects them? Because they are nailing it here. They're absolutely nailing it. And so I just don't want people being pushed away from the show who have not experienced the story before because this story, it is absolutely beautiful. And I want people to experience it, especially people who are watching it for the first time. Imagine going back and watching your favorite show or your favorite movie for the first time and feeling those raw emotions. People are going to feel that like what we felt back in 2013 when the game came out. People who may not play video games and love movies or love TV shows, they're experiencing this story for the very first time. And I want as much eyes on this story as there can be because this story, like I've pretty much spoken about already so many times, it is beautiful, it is soulful, and I just appreciate a good character study as well. They go from point A to point B in such a raw and emotional way, and seeing how the world forges these two, Ellie and Joel, it's something that I don't think should be missed. And I think that we're very, very lucky to be experiencing this on our television screens. I mean, we do that with video games. I mean, like in the form of television, movie quality. It's amazing. Speaking of movie quality, the filmmaking behind not only this episode, but episode 1 and 2, it's amazing. It's beautiful. Sure, the shaky cam can kind of get a little frustrating sometimes, but as far as the texture work goes, the VFX, a lot of like the camera work itself, as far as like composition goes, it is beautiful to look at. Just the deterioration of the city alone, we get to see it in the daylight. There's something beautiful about it all collapsing in on itself, and it tells this story that you don't exactly get told. Like you look at something and it's like, oh, so this must have happened like a long time ago for this building to fall over, or just these really small details of the show that there's just so much enriching story behind it. But yeah, so let's just go ahead and jump into the plot here, because the introduction, much like the first episode, it brings us to the past, which these are not things that the video game these aren't things that the video game did at all. So this is a whole new thing for TV viewers and us. So the gamers as well, we get to experience some new things as well. I think that's awesome. But yeah, we get to experience this doctor, this professor get kidnapped. She knows a lot about cordyceps, and the government, they're like, hey, you know a lot. Can we make some kind of medicine or vaccine to prevent this kind of spread? She's like, guys, no, we need to bomb the city. I'm going to go talk to my family. And it gets dark. It gets so dark because you already know from the present time with Joel and Ellie, it doesn't work. It spreads. And more than likely, those characters are dead because of what's going on and the bombings. And even throughout the episode, they're like, oh, what's this crater? Oh, it's from the bombings. And, clearly it didn't work. They had this whole side conversation about it in the episode. If you pay attention to that, it all just it connects. You should be bombing. And then we see, just markings of bombings happening in the city. Just those small hints of storytelling. It's amazing. It's just those small details. It's what really builds the universe of The Last of Us. And that's what I really like about this is the world building and seeing how the world building affects Joel and Ellie and their relationships. I think Ellie, she's so funny in this episode. She really wants a gun. But yeah, a lot of her dialogue, a lot of her scenes, she's stealing the show for me. Bella Ramsey, I'm loving her. I thought Pedro Pascal was going to do it for me, but no, Pedro Pascal, he's a little one note right now. I don't know if I said that in the first episode, but I think after this and losing Tess, I think Joel is going to jump like instantaneously. I think we're going to see Joel develop more of his personality because right now he's just a hardened shell. We saw him as a father in a hardened shell and not really something that's a mixed bag. I want to see Joel become this mixed bag. And we have already seen that when he fought the guard at the end of episode 1. It wasn't that detailed for me, but I think that we're going to see more of that emotional side of Joel come out, I think probably in the next episode, if not episode 4. So yeah, I really, really like a lot of their character progression, and I'm really excited about this, guys. I think The Last of Us episode 2, it did such a great job. And this episode, it was pretty simple because it's just them walking and showing us the city and the world building. This episode was world building at its finest, and just the small details of how they get from place to place. They have to climb up a skyscraper, go down a ladder, and then jump across rooftops to get just to the next street over because they have to avoid the infected. In fact, something that this does differently from the video games is how the infected actually spread. In the video games, they use these things called spores. And in real life, spores, they would kind of spread and it would kind of infect everyone. So I think the filmmaker is going with a more realistic approach, even more realistic than the video games, because this is all pretty realistic. This is all based on something that's in the real world, cordyceps, and just the evolution of cordyceps. So I think that's basically the foundational scary aspect of this whole story. But basically, they're trying to make that more realistic by creating these tendrils, these vines. So if a character steps on a vine from like a mile away, these cordyceps zombies, the clickers, they're gonna come running. And it's pretty cool just seeing like these new challenges, especially from someone who experienced something slightly different from the games. Just kind of seeing what these characters have to challenge themselves differently on. It's unique from my perspective, for sure. Speaking of the clickers, there was a scene in this episode where the clickers, they go a little hard on the gang, and unfortunately, Tess gets bit on the neck, and yeah, like I said before, we lose Tess, which is unfortunate because we finally got to see Tess's humanity. She went from this hard-shelled character, much like that of Joel, and becomes this really hopeful character by the end of it. And it's like, who are you? You are not the person I saw you like 5 minutes ago as. So that was really cool to experience too. But yeah, just seeing how everything changed, I'm excited for Joel to almost experience something differently, except in the sense of seeing Ellie almost as Sarah, his daughter, and seeing how that changes him. Not necessarily getting bit like Tess, but going through those emotions and seeing how he changes and the decisions that he makes later on, especially the big one at the very end. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about if you've played the video games. But yeah, just seeing all of this come to life from the video games in a really good way with, if you pay attention, some really good story details. I'm excited to see it all come together, guys. I'm so excited. Both all that being said, yeah, I really like this episode. I think that everyone should give The Last of Us a chance. And I think that's going to go ahead and end the video. So if you guys liked the video, be sure to leave a like and a comment down below. And if you guys are new here, go ahead and hit subscribe. And so, yeah, I'm going to be doing this, I think, weekly. So I'll see you guys later on for episode 3. So yeah, I'll see you then. Take care.